All right. So I'm excited to be here today with Sam Davidson, who is the founder and CEO of Batch, which is a gift and retail company that specializes in selling Southern artisanal products. So thanks for joining us, Sam.
Hey, of course. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, I think.
So you have had to adapt to a lot of different things in the last couple of weeks or month, rather, with the tornado in Nashville, which I know affected the neighborhood that Batch is located in. You're in the farmers market, which is in Germantown, which was greatly affected, and now COVID-19. So, how are you doing, first and foremost?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, March for sure dealt threw a lot of curveballs our way, and I was telling somebody, I don't mind hitting a curveball every now and then, but kind of trying to hit at this point two back to back. But even with uh, coronavirus, it seems like each day is a little bit different pitch, if you will, to extend that metaphor. But all things considered, yeah, doing pretty well. We with the tornado had a little bit of damage to our retail store, mostly to inventory, and we're closed for a couple days. And then by the time we reopened, we're only open about 8 or 9 days before we had to close due to COVID-19. So yeah, a lot of stuff back to back for sure.
Right. And I know that you are on a task force right now,
Mhm.
which was assembled by the city. I saw it was yourself and a couple other high
Yeah.
profile entrepreneurs in town. So I thought maybe we could begin by talking a little bit about that, because I know even myself included, as you know, an artist and someone that also owns my own business, I've just been wanting to connect with other people who are dealing with the same things right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what the city's trying to put together and trying to figure out. I think that's the unique thing is that none of us, and probably anybody, obviously you talk to a lot of people, but probably anybody we talk to has really faced something on this kind of scale. And so, thankfully, luckily, the city is trying to stay on top of that and just, gosh, trying to answer people's questions. I know that I even have a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to. Everything from funding at the federal level to what and who is allowed to operate at the local level, but even thinking about where things are going to be once our safer at home directives end, and where is the national, the local marketplace even going to be. So the point of the task force is to provide as many resources as possible to small business owners of any type who are running businesses of any size, whether it's just them who are creating art, things like that, to the local restaurateur, to somebody who maybe runs a consultancy. I mean, really trying to be that hub where people can go for information, but especially accurate information. I think, like any sort of disaster, there's a lot of stuff that can be out there. And so it's really up to us as business owners to make sure that whatever we're reading or whatever actions we're trying to take for our business, we're doing so in a very accurate and proper, I guess, a way with the info that we have at our fingertips.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I know that your retail store in Germantown isn't
Mhm.
open right now, but you're still operating at your warehouse. And so I would imagine it's also, you operating under safety guidelines at this
Yeah,
point, right?
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. We have always had a warehouse where we pack a lot of our gifts in high volume. We've always sold in line since we started the business almost 7 years ago. But we still have to operate under, yeah, different guidelines, just like you said. So we have a very few people working there. Number one, trying to limit the number of bodies in and out of that warehouse. Folks are staying 6 or more feet apart when they're packing and even working together on similar orders. Everybody's wearing gloves. We've got hand sanitizer, encouraging hand washing. Even the deliveries that we're accepting, we're doing contactless delivery receipt. And so as a vendor is dropping something off, we're leaving instructions about where they can leave that. Again, just trying to limit that exposure as much we can. So yeah, even though the fundamentals, I guess, are things that we've done for a while, now the way that we're having to do those is still just a little bit different right
I can't even imagine how bizarre it must be. I mean, that was the first thought that came to mind, because you do something that I think is really charming, and I follow your posts because you're a
now.
really good writer and you obviously are a public speaker as well. You have your, diary of a small business owner. And I love that you've been posting not only, how you communicate with your team every morning, which I believe you said something about how you send out a daily email every morning, but also you'll even post little excerpts about how you're trying to cheer them on. Because I think that's the thing that people aren't talking about is like everyone's talking about how to pivot, but the mental impact and the emotional impact it could have on people is something that isn't often discussed.
Oh, for sure. And I think the thing that makes this pandemic different than, say, a tornado or some other natural disaster that we could think of is no one, and I mean, no one has any idea of when it's going to end. Whereas a tornado comes through, and even if, God forbid, your place is leveled, you at least have a construction timeline. You at least, and if there's damage, you can know when it's going to be reopened or when you might get an insurance payment. But for the fact that our retail store is closed at least until the end of April is all we know at this point. But if I were trying to bet on that, I would say probably longer. And so there's just that uncertainty that all small business owners are facing, number one, but it affects everybody. I mean, kids are out of school, folks aren't able to gather like they normally do. And so the uncertainty affects us all equally. And so with those emails to the team, I just try to really convey what I know, which is usually very little, but just providing some sort of information to say, hey, we're going to be closed this long, and here's the next thing that we're doing. And really, we're only operating with a mindset of kind of 2 or 3 days out at a time of knowing what work there is going to be for people who are able and willing, but even where things are going to be for us. And so I'm normally not that kind of operator. I normally like to have a little bit longer plan in place and a roadmap, but that's the best anybody can do. And so I've found that just saying to our team, hey, here's what I know. I'm telling you everything that I know. And if you have a question, let's talk about it. I'll try to do my best. But everybody's in that boat, whether you run a small business or you work for a big company. Everybody's full of that same uncertainty right now.
Well, and you brought up an interesting point, and I love that you said that, which is maybe it's counterintuitive for you to kind of go one day at a time now, but that's obviously all you can do. I was talking about that even with my aunt yesterday, where, I said, everything's changing so quickly right now. How could you plan out? And
Yeah.
so I think it's great that even if it's not your natural rhythm as an entrepreneur, you're embracing it.
Yeah, and I am more than happy to embrace risk or to navigate uncertainty, try new things as an entrepreneur, and I'm kind of used to that. But just the fact there are so many things out of my control, I think, is what is also a huge challenge for me and just my own mental state. Is it's one thing if you're starting a business kind of in quote normal times, but to do it now where at Batch, we do a lot of gifts, corporate gifts, conference
Mhm.
gifts. And so obviously the conference business for us, it has vanished and will be even once we can kind of all go about and socialize again. It's going to take a while for travel to hit kind of pre-COVID levels. And so there's just so many things for the first time, I think, in our 7 years that are so external to us that I kind of have no control over.
Mhm.
And so that's something that as an entrepreneur, you're used to a little bit of risk and uncertainty. And hey, we got to grind this thing out and give it a shot and take a risk. And but now it seems to be on such a level that's bigger than us and bigger than we may try as hard as we want, but it's still so many other things are bearing down on us. And so that's what can definitely add to kind of the weight and the pressure of the moment.
Oh, sure. Well, and I think you had put up a post that said something along the lines of your, revenue is up, but your margin has fallen, and so you're just trying to do whatever it takes to stay afloat right now. And
Yeah.
I appreciated that. I mean, because it was interesting. My next big writing job that was supposed to be like my salary for the year, same thing, got pushed out, and I
Yeah.
put something up about it publicly and said, I'm bummed out. I mean, this sucks. It's a big company, and I was so excited, but what are you going to do? It's completely out of my
Yeah.
hands. And I thought, and I'd rather be honest and put that out there rather than try to hide. So I think it's very brave what you're doing.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, a lot of it is for my own kind of clarity, sanity, whatever you want to call it, is that because I think in those moments where any of us, but I know for me, when I don't have control, I start to look for what can I control. And so far, it has been this. You know what? I can write this diary of a small business owner, and whether it's just what I tried to grapple with today, or again these feelings of uncertainty or pressure, just putting it out there, I feel like, hey, at least I can also just get it out there. And for me, if it stays kind of percolating inside, eventually it'll blow in some other way. And so for me, writing has always been that outlet and something that I can kind of almost feel it when it's like, I've got to get this idea out. Even if it's just something that I write down that nobody's ever going to see, I at least got to get it out. And so thankfully, what I've been writing has found a little bit of an audience, I think, with other small business owners. At Batch, we work with close to 200 other small makers, yourself included as an author, whose goods and books and products that we sell and represent. And so I've always felt like I've had a little bit of insight into the life and times of a small business owner. Yes, being one, but then hearing the stories of all of our vendors. And so again, those are folks that are in the same boat. And so this notion of survival, we just want to kind of get through this for our own employees, of course, but especially for a lot of the folks whose goods that we sell, that the small makers, the artisans, who again are in the same boat and trying to figure out how long is this thing going, and what is the world, much less my market, going to look like when we're through.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I was thinking about, which is unique to your situation as being a small business owner, is you're a vendor for 200 other ones.
Yeah.
How are they handling this? I was thinking about that this morning because I was, and I want to address this next because I love the new relief boxes you are
Hmm.
selling. I think those are brilliant. But one of the companies that you had featured in there, I had just written an article about, and I thought, I feel terrible for them. It's Daily Crunch,
Oh
the,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
nut company. They had
yeah.
just launched. It's a beautiful product. They put about 2 years into debuting it, about a week before all this happened. And so I thought, it's at least they have you to still put their products out there. But I was wondering how the small businesses you work with are coping.
Yeah, the ones that I've talked to, and we try to communicate as much and as clearly as we can with our vendors, just to say, here's what we're trying to do. Because there are folks that we, would always kind of order a steady amount for. There's definitely products that we carry that are a little more seasonal. So, we sell more seasonings and barbecues kind of stuff in this time of year when folks start to think about grilling and more of the sweets and the chocolates in the winter, and et cetera. So there's kind of a couple different camps, I think. I think some folks are, um, uh, they are understanding that there's going to be a time of kind of survival mode, that hey, things are going to be tight, I might not make any profit for a period of time, but as long as I can just keep making and kind of keep things open, I'll be good.
Mhm.
Some folks who are very retailer heavy and who are selling things into a lot of in-person retail, obviously I've seen a lot of their orders drastically cut. Some small vendors who are doing kind of those grocery and pantry staples are still doing okay because they're still supplying, whether it's grocery stores or able to sell online. And so it's really kind of all over the map. I mean, we've done this long enough now where we have seen vendors, small businesses come and go,
Mhm.
and it's not always a tragedy. And what I tell folks is that businesses, like relationships, almost sometimes they just have a life cycle or an expiration date. And
Mhm.
some folks realize, hey, I started this. It was a passion of mine. It was grandma's recipe, and I gave it my best shot, but it just wasn't going to be my full time work. And so I've loved it, but I'm hanging it up. That happens. Great. You learned. You did okay. Awesome. Some folks grow it and sell it to a big food brand and retire, and that's awesome. And then some folks, yeah, they just sort of realize based on where they're at and what they started. So we've seen those sort of natural ebbs and flows of businesses start and stop. But again, this with so many externalities is going to force a lot of people's hands. And so we have always said that our business ends the minute that all these other businesses end, because that's our supply chain. We're not a grocery store. We're not just some big online e-commerce conglomerate that sells everything. We've got a very specific supply chain.
Mhm.
And so the cool thing, all that to say, the cool thing has been a lot of the vendors who, again, because they're small business owners, because they hustle, they're scrappy, they dream, but they work hard, is the ones who have reached out and say, hey, what can we work on? What can we do? And so, yeah, Laurel and her team at Daily Crunch, even yesterday, called and just said, what can we offer? How can we be out there? What if we did this? So we've actually got a couple things we're working on with them that we hope to share in the next week or so, really
Mm.
just to tell their story. And again, they've got a great passion for what they make and how they want to serve. And so we just said, yeah, how can we dream together? Which is usually the fun part of starting a business anyway.
Well, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like it's bred a lot more
Mhm.
collaboration than maybe
Mhm.
before. I saw, I believe it was this morning, you had posted something about your collaboration between Batch, the Nashville
Mhm.
scene, and United Way in
Yeah.
regards to your relief boxes. I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that and how that collaboration came about, and of course, how listeners can support Batch right now.
Yeah. So Mike and his team over at Nashville Scene just reached out. We've known them and their work for a long time, and obviously they're a vital kind of link in the Nashville media in terms of the stories they cover. They've seen a huge hit in terms of their revenue source. Most of their advertisers are restaurants and concert venues, of which people can't go to right now, and two industries that are badly struggling. And so they just reached out and said, hey, we've got this audience that we've accumulated over the years online and print. We want to do something good. You guys have products. What can we dream up together? And so we came up with these 3 relief boxes, and folks can buy them for themselves. And we centered them around a couple different themes. One allows families, people at home, to cook at home. And so it's 4 different ingredients that
Mm.
allows folks to, either again, get the kids, get the family together, and let's cook together. I think a lot of people are returning to that ideal because their lives are less busy in terms of no commutes, and they're not at the office for a certain amount of time. We've got one that's kind of focused on health and wellness, and so it's got healthy snacks. It's got some soap and other kind of home products to keep your family and house clean. And then we've got one that's kind of a at-home survival kit, and so it's got a puzzle and a coloring book and some other, again, fun activities that kind of encompass everything. But they wanted to get that out there, help their readership, something they could talk about, but then ultimately, yeah, raise money for this fund that the city's developed through the United Way that's going to help a lot of folks who are out of work, businesses who are finding themselves struggling. And so it's great to see how the city has created that fund, again, with the help and backing of United Way, and the mayor, all levels of government are behind it, because they realized early on, as much as Nashville's tourism base has grown and it's become this international city, when folks can't and won't travel, then a lot of folks can hurt real quick in terms of work. So yeah, it's so cool, and that's something that's been in Nashville's DNA, I think, for longer than I've even been here. Um, is this notion of working together, collaboration, community, and we're seeing that again. We saw it definitely after the tornado in terms of support and cleanup. Saw it after the flood 10 years ago, but then also now seeing it in this pandemic, that folks are coming together and want to help each other.
Yeah, and I think the supportive local, I think that's a common conversation around the world right now is, people say that you have to support your local businesses, makers, farmers, whatever it is. So, yes, so I believe you can buy them through Batch's website, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. You just go to batchusa.com and you'll see them there on the homepage. But yeah, you can also just search for Relief Box, and those 3 will pop up that you can take your pick. And again, get them for yourself and enjoy with your family or at your house, or send them to somebody. We're still shipping nationwide at this point. And so we can send them anywhere that you may have a loved one who you just want to check in on.
Awesome. Well, and thank you also for keeping people at home and giving them fun things to
Yeah.
do. I saw the coloring book in there. I thought that, and the puzzle, I thought that was really, really
Yeah.
great.